In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. Yesterday, we saw how Jesus celebrated with his disciples what we call communion. He was having the Last Supper, and then he took bread, and he broke it, and he said, "Eat this. This is my body that is broken for you." And we saw in Isaiah 53, Jesus' body was broken for our healing. There's other scripture that says, if you don't appreciate the sacrifice of the body of Jesus, then illness and sometimes even death can be yours because you don't receive the healing that he paid for with his body. So when you celebrate communion, when you take the bread, declare the wholeness that he paid for you. And don't put up with any illness that the enemy's trying to put on you. And then he took the cup and he said, drink this. This is the blood of the new covenant. My blood is for a new covenant. Your sin is paid for. It's not about following the law. It's about you being free from behavior issues so that now you can receive the love of God and come alive now. Be born again, born of the Spirit. Walk in a newness of life as you're raised from the dead with me. Well, so much of the time when communion is introduced from the pulpit, we're told to look at ourselves and look at the sin that's in our hearts. Look, if you look in your heart for sin, you're going to see it, because all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I heard the greatest introduction to communion one day. The preacher said, "We need to talk about sin. Oh my goodness, we're about to take communion and we've got to focus on sin. Your sin was nailed to the cross." Oh, when you take communion, don't look at your heart for sin. Look at your heart for Jesus. He said, "Do this in remembrance of me." In the Last Supper time, Jesus also called out Judas, and we're looking at that today. I talked about that a couple days ago because we saw how Scripture said Satan entered Judas. And so I said, Judas is a good guy. Well, maybe what I should have said is he wasn't such a bad guy. Because maybe he wasn't a good guy, because Jesus even said he's a devil because of what he's about to do. Not because he is, but because of what he's about to do. And there's scripture that says he stole from the treasury. So maybe he wasn't a good guy, but he wasn't such a bad guy. He's not so different than you and me. And so as we look at today's scripture, let's consider that. We're in Luke chapter 22. And I want to read verses 21 through 23, and they say this: "Behold, the hand of the one betraying me is with mine at the table. For indeed, the Son of Man is going as it has been determined." I'm going to the cross, just as it's been prophesied, just as I need to pay for your sin. "But woe to the man by whom he is betrayed." Woe to Judas. Now I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let me finish this verse. "And they began to discuss among themselves which one of them it might be who was going to do this thing." So they're sitting at the table and everybody's saying, who is it that's going to do it? It's not me. I know it's not me. Who's it going to be? Well, as we found out, it was Judas. And Jesus said, "Woe to you." Many people think that what Jesus was saying is God's going to condemn you. But that's not what he was saying. If you'll look up woe, let me give you the definition. It is sorrow and distress, great sorrow and distress. Well, certainly we saw in Scripture that Judas suffered that. Oh, his remorse was overwhelming, so much so that he actually committed suicide. And so when he says, "Woe to you, Judas," what he's saying is you are going to go through a horrible distress. And every one of us will. Are you listening? If we follow after the enemy, if we don't resist the devil that he would flee from us, then woe to us, because we are going to suffer depression and distress. Terrible sorrow is what Jesus said you're going to suffer. Look at the synonyms: misery, sorrow, distress, heartache. Judas certainly experienced heartache and heartbreak, despair, dejection, depression. See, there it is, gloom and melancholy. That's woe. It's not eternal damnation. It is a heart that is going to be broken and disappointed because we're following after the enemy instead of following after the Lord. Oh, you embrace the darkness, and woe to you. Not that I'm going to condemn you, God says, but because the result of following after the enemy is nothing but despondency and great, great distress. Well, woe to you, Judas, and woe to every one of us who follows after the enemy, who walks in darkness instead of walking in the light. God bless you, the one who does not follow the enemy but walks in the light, because God is light and there's no darkness in him. And as you walk in the light, you receive his love and walk in a rich abundance of life that's ours as we walk with him. I look forward to getting with you again tomorrow. I'll see you then.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus.